Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so glad you're joining me again today. Today I'm showing another reverse confetti project using these adorable images from the Boo Day stamp set from their latest release. I stamped them out in Memento Tuxedo Black ink onto Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock, which is great for alcohol markers and also for ink blending. And I'm using my alcohol markers to color these images in today. I'm not doing anything fancy today with the coloring because I want the focus to be a little bit more on the background. So I'm just going from dark to light, and when I see that I don't have enough contrast, I go back in with my darkest marker or an even darker shade if I have that, and darken up the shadows even more. Now, I don't have the greatest collection of alcohol markers and my oranges are severely lacking, so I had to improvise a little bit. I did the shading with a light red, which is obviously not the same as orange, and I did the mid-tone in orange, and then I used yellow for my lightest shade. I think it worked out okay, but I would have liked a little bit more contrast, but my next red up was a little bit too red, so that wouldn't work either. Now with the hat, I basically had the same issue. My mid-tone was way too dark to transition nicely to my lightest shade, so I solved that by doing some tip to tip. Now that was way too slow to show in the video because you have to wait for the ink to transfer from one marker to the other. But basically you just hold the tips together, the ink transfers a little bit, and then you can color with a mid-tone between those shades. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lot better than what I had initially. So I took the win and I kept it there. For my background, I'm doing some ink smooshing, and to give it a little bit more interest, I have die cut this panel with the Reverse Confetti Stitched Scallops cover die. I want my ink smooshing to be only around the edges of the panel, so I want a little bit more control than you usually have when ink smooshing, and I do that by just taking some plastic packaging. This is one of those CD or DVD packages, sleeves that I use to store my dies in, or I used to use those to store my dies in, and I have a lot left over. I just pick the ink up with that and then I press it down onto my paper. You get a similar effect, just more control of where you put your ink. Now I had a lot white left over and I didn't want to do more ink smooshing, so I just painted that in very loosely with a brush. Of course, when you do ink smooshing like that, your ink comes out a lot lighter than it usually does. So to darken up the edges, I did some ink blending with the same inks I used, and all the supplies I used today will be listed in the description below. So I just took a blending brush, and then I can go in with each shade again and just cover the edge with a little bit more color. I'm just doing the green on top of the green. I am overlapping the colors a little bit where the ink smooshing colors overlapped. So that gives a nice natural transition. Now once that is finished, I put my critters on there, or my images on there, and I wasn't too happy with it. I just wanted a little bit more of a grounding point for my images, and I did that by just drawing on a frame. I took a die that was the perfect size for what I needed, but you can absolutely just measure out a frame. This was easiest for me. Now I'm just checking if my images fit nicely, otherwise I would have made that background again. And I like it, but I want that frame a little bit thicker and have it a little bit more pizzazz. I used the Fine Tack Pearl colors here, and this is just a black paint with a little bit of shimmer in it. It's super subtle, but you can notice it in real life. You can't notice it on camera, I think. And I'm just tracing over that frame. Now I also will use this black paint as well to add some splatter to the panel because I thought the background was a little bit too simple still, so obviously I'm going to fix that with some splatter. I love black splatter on Halloween cards and some other cards too, but I'm usually a little bit too afraid to use it. but on Halloween cards, it's a safe bet that it will work. Now, if you think the black splatter is too harsh, you can use the same colors of ink that you used in your background, and that will add a nice subtle splatter effect. I let that dry completely, and then I can put my card together. I'm gluing this onto a top folding note card, but my note card wasn't cut right, so I will have to trim off some of the excess on the note card. I just use my scissors to trim off the excess, but you can use your paper trimmer if that's easier. Now all that's left to do is just prop my images up on some foam squares. Obviously, I am making a matching envelope again. I'm keeping things super simple, like I always do with my envelopes, but apparently people like them, so I keep making them even though the designs are ridiculously easy. I'm just folding that out of Clairefontaine DCP 250 GSM cardstock with my We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board, and then I can adhere it together with a Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. Lots of long product names that took me like 10 times to record. And I can now just do my ink blending. I'm keeping things a little bit rough. Well, the ink blending itself is smooth, but I go farther out in some spots than in others to get a more organic blend into the white. And I'm using the same inks that I used on my card, which gives a nice nod to your card design and makes everything match nicely. And that finishes up my project for today. I hope you like it as much as I do. My camera refused to focus on the envelope, but I really like how the card turned out. I love that ink smooshing and the splatter, and I hope you do too. If you did, make sure to leave a like on this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. I'd also love to know if you like to make Halloween cards. I don't usually, but I've really gotten into it this year. If you want to see more of my videos and be notified every time I upload one, you can subscribe to my channel and also hit that bell button down below. That will give you notifications. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.